When Dutch soldiers returned to Indonesia in 1945, the conventional narrative suggests they were there to reclaim a lucrative colonial engine. They were back for the rubber, the spices, and the extraction of wealth that had fueled the Netherlands for centuries. This view of colonial restoration is reflected in modern-day Surabaya. At the Simpong Club, a government plaque commemorates the building as a headquarters for the nationalist youth, celebrating its role in the struggle for independence. First-hand accounts from late 1945 reveal a grimmer history for the club. During the early months of the revolution, the Simpong Club operated as a slaughterhouse, where nationalist militias systematically tortured and executed civilians. Contemporary records identify the victims as European civilians, mixed-race Eurasians, and ethnic Chinese families. This violence was part of a coordinated wave of ethnic cleansing that swept across the archipelago, a series of events frequently overshadowed by the larger narrative of national liberation. To understand the motivations of the Dutch military in 1945, we must examine the specific, violent conditions on the ground that standard history often overlooks. The conditions for this violence began in 1942. When the Imperial Japanese Army invaded the East Indies, the Dutch colonial administration collapsed almost overnight, ending centuries of European control and starting a brutal occupation. Seeking to dismantle Western influence, the Japanese military recruited local nationalist leaders, offering them positions of authority in exchange for their active collaboration. Sukarno, who would eventually lead the new nation, took a central role in the Japanese administration. He actively promoted the occupying forces as a liberating army and received medals of honor for his service. Alongside him was Mohammed Hatta, who worked with the Japanese to organize the local population in support of the Axis war effort. This collaboration came at a high cost. Nationalist leaders helped requisition food supplies and laborers for the Japanese, contributing to a famine and a forced labor system, the Romusha, that killed an estimated 2.4 million Indonesians. Simultaneously, the Japanese trained and indoctrinated local youth militias, known as the Pemuda. These groups were drilled in martial combat and steeped in the ultra-nationalist anti-Western ideologies of the Japanese Empire. By the end of the war, the independence movement was no longer a peaceful political lobby. It was a militarized force engineered by a fascist occupying power. In August 1945, Japan suddenly surrendered. This left the Indonesian archipelago in a massive, chaotic power vacuum. With the Japanese military standing down and no Allied troops yet on the ground, the Pemuda militias took control of the streets. This triggered a period known as the Bersiap. It was an explosion of targeted racial violence directed at anyone perceived as an ally to the former colonial order. This surge in violence was devastating. Estimates indicate between 25,000 and 30,000 were killed in just a few months. While Dutch civilians were targeted, most victims were locally born minorities, including 10% of the total Eurasian population and thousands of ethnic Chinese. Historians now argue the Bersiap meets the criteria for a brief, ethnically motivated genocide, adding a complex moral layer to the events of 1945. From the perspective of the Dutch government in The Hague, the colony was no longer just a resource to be managed. It was a territory descending into an uncontrollable massacre. The self-declared nationalist government under Sukarno appeared unable to stop the Pemuda militias, and in some cases, the National Army was directly arming the very groups committing the killings. The geopolitical reality was fractured. The nationalist movement was centered on Java, where most Pemuda groups operated. However, ethnic minorities in regions like the Moluccas and Timor fiercely opposed a Javanese-led republic, viewing it as a new imperial threat, and actively sought Dutch protection. When Dutch troops landed, they found themselves in a rescue mission. They were tasked with evacuating civilians and former prisoners of war who had survived Japanese camps, only to find themselves besieged by the Pemuda. The Dutch deployment was driven by a dual objective: to re-establish the economic flow of the colony, while simultaneously acting as a security force to halt a genocide and protect vulnerable minorities. Recognizing the violence of the Bersiap does not erase the exploitative and racist nature of the Dutch colonial system that preceded it. As the intervention evolved into a long war, Dutch forces would go on to commit severe war crimes and illegal summary executions. The eventual emergence of a sovereign Indonesia was a legitimate historical necessity. When we look at 1945 from the present day, we tend to see a unified, inevitable path toward the modern Indonesian state. But if we reverse that view, we see a fractured landscape of competing factions and chaos. Treating the birth of a nation as a simple struggle between two sides ignores the tens of thousands of civilians who were caught in the crossfire of ethnic purging. The history of 1945 is not a clear-cut story of greed versus freedom. It was a complex, violent transition where uncomfortable truths existed on every side of the conflict.